What? 2 meme-man videos in the same month? Sound the alarms! Yeah, this is when the self-depreciation wears off and I realize that I'm actually good at it. So, let's call back to when I told Kirk Crew to not remake his first episode. Today's video is to focus on exactly that. Why is rebooting slash remaking slash remastering such a bad thing to me? Well, it's the fact that...
Sir, we have a Doritos delivery for you.
Huh? I don't recall ordering anything.
Meme man, we need to cook.
Who are you?
Oh, me? Where?
I'm just here to talk about reboots.
Yeah, same.
Come right in, you're in the right place. Wait, how do you know where I live?
Not gonna lie, I think my Wi-Fi is having a fucking stroke right now. Oh, I go first? Okay, let's talk about Super Mario Bros. Z. Now, I'm not here to dissuade or insult the reboot, because truly, it is a massive improvement upon the original. The active upgrades in animation, dialogue, and music choice all make these episodes not only better than the originals, but also fantastic pieces of animation on their own. However, the title of this section is called A Double-Edged Sword, because while the Super Mario Bros. Z reboot did improve upon the original series, it also killed the Super Mario Bros. Z series itself. For one, it killed viewer investment. By restarting from the beginning, this meant that Mark started reusing and repeating plot points. Viewers were watching the same things that they had already seen. It would be unexciting and repetitive from a viewer's perspective, because these are the exact same events that we witnessed years ago. Admittedly, this doesn't mean that these events aren't interesting or enjoyable while watching, but more so that they're not really surprising or shocking the same way that they were on the first watch. For example, the pod falling out of the sky down onto Bowser goes from a shocking save to something everyone knows is coming. I think it says a lot that when looking at the YouTube comments for episodes of the reboot, most of them talk about how nostalgic they are to see the series back, rather than talking about the actual contents of the episode itself. This is mainly because there isn't any shocking or surprising content in the actual episodes that people would talk about in the comments. This is all stuff that they've seen before. And sure, there have been some changes in the reboot, like the reveal of Eggman early on, but these are minor and haven't greatly affected the overall narrative. It's not like people didn't know who Eggman was in the original series either. Other changes like the inclusion of the Wario and Waluigi chase sequence or the change from a racetrack to a fighting tournament, while cool and definitely improvements, are also very minor changes. They have yet to profoundly impact the plot to the point that I would consider them major changes to the story. However, this is all actually kind of minor in comparison to the second problem. See, by rebooting the series, Mark also killed his own investment. I'm not trying to say that Mark doesn't care about Super Mario Bros. Z or that he isn't invested in his own creation. Far from it. His dedication and effort is very clear in every episode, and I am not trying to say that Mark doesn't want to see the series to the very end. But what I am saying is that Mark kinda shot himself in the foot. Instead of getting to animate brand new, never before seen plot points and scenes, Mark was reanimating stuff that he had already done before. As a creator, you want to be, well, creative. You want to come up with stuff and create things that you've never seen before. By rebooting the series, Mark was now redoing scenes that he had done a decade ago. That must be very draining and tiring, to repeat and stagnate instead of innovate and invent. So, the Super Mario Bros. Z reboot killed both the viewers' and creators' interest in the series, making it a severe double-edged sword. However, neither of those are really the biggest issue with the Super Mario Bros. Z reboot. See, the real issue is also the reboot's greatest strength: the quality. The animation, the effects, the sprites, the 3D movements, the fucking everything. I mean, look at this quality. Yes, it looks amazing. But that also means that it takes super fucking long to make. It's not easy or quick to make animation this clean, especially when you work mostly as a one-man crew like Mark Haynes does. As a result, the Super Mario Bros. Z reboot takes forever to make. Even ignoring Mark's breaks or personal hiatuses from the series, he has still admitted that it takes him about a year to make a full episode. Since Mark has also said that the series would be about 18 episodes long, that means that it would take 18 years for Super Mario Bros. Z to finish with no breaks. That's nearly 2 decades of work. You could be born and become an adult by the time Super Mario Bros. Z was over. This absurd length and production time caused the series to take very long periods for new episodes to come out. If Mark hadn't rebooted the series and left off from the cliffhanger of episode 8, that would mean that he had to animate about 10 more episodes. That would be about half the workload, and as such, time of rebooting the series. There is no denying that it damaged Super Mario Bros. Z by hurting audience interest in it, hurting creator interest in it, and massively expanding the time that it would take for the series to continue. I know it sounds like I'm being really negative, but I really do want to stress that the reboot is fucking amazing and I absolutely love it. What's sad is that despite all of this, it's still the Sprite series that had the best reboot. All of the other ones only get worse on from here.
Why am I sandwiched in between? I didn't agree to this, what the fuck? Anyway, I know that I've already dissected Heroes of Stars in like every single aspect, but not the remasters. I intentionally avoided them in the retrospective for a simpler way of telling the events. So I guess I'll talk on them now. The reboot for SMBZ, while not completely necessary, did amp up the overall quality that was expected for the series, both narratively and visually. This is sadly not the case for Heroes of Stars. As mentioned previously, only the initial chapters received this treatment, 2 remasters for episode 1 and 1 remaster for episode 2. If you're wondering why these two look identical, that's because version 3 is just a visual revamp for version 2. Both look the same, but one just has more details, effects, and different text boxes than the other. Let's start off with the fact that I'm calling them remasters and not remakes or reboots, because that's what they are. They don't even change minor plot threads. SMBZ at least shook some things up, like making the water bros an actual obstacle. What are the major changes in Heroes of Stars? Let's see. Just a sprite? Peach is now really romantic towards Mario? That's it? Okay. The only noticeable differences are the visuals and the pacing being significantly slower than the original. Considering that a lot of the close-ups and the effects are straight up downgrades, no offense, these renditions are just worse adaptations to me. I don't even understand the one that merely got visual upgrades, like, what merited this? Why waste time on such a non-issue? And secondly, and bear with me here, is Kratos actively remastering episode 1 again. In fact, this one is actually a reboot, apparently. This is supposedly gonna be the 4th version of episode 1. There's version 1 from 2011, version 2 from 2014, version 3 from 2021, and now version 4 which is in the works. Like, I don't understand. Why go back to this one episode so many times? I get that his channel got deleted and that gave him the incentive to start from a clean slate, but that slate was already clean like twice before. If Kratos is watching, don't take it as a demoralizing piece. I'd rather have a finished 4th version than months of work cancelled. What worries me here is the mindset behind all this. It looks like he's stuck in this constant loop of wanting to remake the initial episodes, writing himself into these little corners, and then some years later he's not satisfied with them and sees no choice but to work on them again. This alone wouldn't be so damaging to his own series if he just, kept on going after episode 11. After all, I wanna see Mario crying animated, who doesn't? All this makes me wonder, were all these revamps justifiable? No? However, both SMZ and SME HOTS had a positive intention when wanting to start again. I mean, it's human for an artist wanting to perfect the work, to see how much different they are than the one that made the originals. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. One wasn't as good as the other, but their reasons were still noble and respectable. The same cannot be said, however, for the following series.
The infamous Smasher block killed my family. No, he seriously did it. Not a shred of sympathy, regret, or remorse. Meme Man and Quastar both already had their fun shredding the series called Super Mario Bros. GT. DX. So it's my turn for revenge now. If I were to describe Smasher's releases over the years, they are the definition of cookie cutter. The stagnation of his reboots is the exact problem. If you took all the aspects people liked about SMBZ, the fights, the Mario and Sonic crossover, the Dragon Ball elements, and mixed them all together with a clout-chasing addict, you would get nothing short of a recipe for a Smasher block series. His callouts on his plagiarism aren't even what we're talking about either. No need to beat a horse so far into the ground it may as well have blended with solid rock. We know Smasher has always wanted to live up to the legacies of SMBZ, but doesn't know how exactly to make himself different from it in any way, even conceptually. Think about it. Even just the titles that I mentioned earlier, GT, Super, meaningless letters like DX, and eventually even a random Dragon Ball game title, which is Xenoverse. He very clearly wanted not just to establish that he was inspired by the formula, he wanted to reinforce it. This reboot obsession dates back to as far as 2012. His motivations for doing this all the time are very visibly shallow too. He does this to try and avoid any form of criticism or backlash. His pattern behavior is just as follows. Make SMB Xenoverse, get dunked on. Make GT, get dunked on. Make DX, get dunked on. And reboot DX yet again. He's been doing this song and dance for 13 years. His fans aren't possibly even that old. If he truly wanted to make a reboot that would be successful, he would have to shake up at least some elements of his different series, but these all play out either exactly the same as their predecessors, or worse, exactly the same as SMBZ. The main antagonist, of course, being Mechasonic in all these series. So the public knows, GT's cast was simply SMBZ, but with Tails instead of Shadow, who in all series maintains a more antagonistic role. A final constant to note is how the female characters are really accurate to classic shonen, that being that they do absolutely no form of contribution. One could even mistake him for being hired by a corporate boss just to make these with how formulaic and bog standard they all are. Count the amount of times you've seen Smasher's classic intro template flashing a bunch of character faces or characters standing in a grassy field in other Mario and Sonic Sprite series. You'd be surprised. Just because SMBZ did it in its early episodes does not mean that SMBDX can do it. And do it 15 times. This is why Sprite series should be low in scope and stop eventually. And Smasher is definitely no character to stop. He recently announced that he would remake the first 6 episodes of SMBDX, and that episode 7 would resume development. The epitome of not just rebooting, but rebooting inside of a reboot. It's rebootception. Not only does Smasher remake his series a lot of times, but he also rebrands himself every time he does it. He goes from Jason Dare to Brawl Studios to Stry-X to Smasher Block to Smashinity and now Smash PXL, like a criminal changing identities to avoid getting caught by the police. He proved that he couldn't change even when deliberately attempting to. This is just comical. This art speaks to no one. Not just in the sprite animation community, but in a world dominated by people who are willing to tolerate tools like AI for mass producing stuff in a similar way. It's just terrifying.
Now, we've talked a lot about reboots and the negative ways that they impacted each sprite series. However, it's important to highlight the opposite side of the spectrum and talk about some sprite series that actually kept going and managed to stick to a consistent and continuous narrative. A great example of this is Mario and Luigi, The Mask. Now, while The Mask does have many faults and issues, as Me-Man will soon talk about in his The Mask retrospective, one mistake The Mask never made was rebooting. The series has pretty much consistently kept up from each episode, and continued on from wherever it last left off. Of course, there are some exceptions, as some episodes have received remasters. However, it's important to know that these are just remasters, instead of full-on restarts like each of the prior examples were. Instead of starting from the very beginning and continuing on from there, Time Lord Paradox wisely improved the story, but then kept on making new episodes. These improved episodes did not overwrite the series, but merely restructured it. Think of it like a building. Instead of demolishing an entire skyscraper and then building a new one in its place, he renovated and redesigned the floors while continuing to add new floors to the building. This has led to Mario and Luigi The Mask having one of the highest episode counts of any sprite series at fucking 15. 15 episodes of narrative and storytelling instead of repeating episode 1 multiple times. This is what happens when a creator sticks to their vision and continues on instead of rebooting over and over and over and over again.
As much as I don't like Molds in Danger, I can't ignore the fact that there were actually no remakes whatsoever. It's a clean line from episode 1 to episode 10. While my ass refused to watch the last 2 because I was getting fed up with it, stuff like this is still commendable. If only it was good. And it didn't finish, too. What, you expected me to say more? Never. I will never talk about this series again. Oh shit, my headphones fell.
Sonic RPG, the legendary Flash game of the time, is a good example of a series that ended its major plot threads in a satisfying conclusion. It can be considered on the caliber of comparable series like Power Star by Daniel Sun, in which it had a specific story it wanted to tell and didn't get too big for its ambition. The first episode of Sonic RPG aired in 2006, being before Sega's official Sonic RPG, Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood. There were no reboots required. It had an original premise. It had an original crossover franchise, being Knights. The series' gameplay continued until its conclusion, almost 14 years later, in the amount of time that it's taking Smasher to stop acting like a walking printer. Midnight Marin managed to fully complete his vision. Truly inspiring in my opinion. If Midnight Marin can be driven by that amount of passion, so can you.
And truly, that's the perfect example. If a series can be finished by sticking to its original plan and continuing the ongoing plot, there's no excuse for a creator to remake just for improvements or because they regret the mistakes they've made. While adding to or adjusting the original is a fine idea on paper, it cuts in the way of actually adding more content or creating new stuff. Art itself is an expressive and originality based medium, so constantly starting over is counterproductive. It doesn't help that many of these restarts can be abused so the series can be more excused or covered up, as we've seen with people like Smasher, using them as a tool to avoid or cut down criticism, improvement, or artistic integrity. They say an artist's worst enemy is themselves, and reboots are a perfect representation of that idea. While they might initially seem like a way of dealing with perfectionism and self-improvement, they're more commonly a scapegoat for a creator to restrict and prevent themselves from making meaningful progress. And it is for all these reasons that we believe reboots to be nothing more than the killers of sprite animation. Bye guys.
Okay, but before I go, I'm just gonna really quickly plug my shit. Subscribe to my YouTube channel.
If you liked what I said, you can go to any page on the internet that says Bear on it. Hope you know what the right one is.
Wait, those suckers didn't actually bring any Doritos.
Wow. Dark. I wouldn't even keep you as a beehive in my forest!